when these films are being made, these girls are being hurt. Physical damage that lasts their lifetime.
You're either taking drugs or medications to numb from the pain, or you're taking drugs to counteract the STDs that are being spread.
Adult entertainment of any form is not at all as it's portrayed.
So let's talk about pornography. I mean, what's the big deal? That's what I thought growing up. I couldn't understand why everybody was getting so amped up as a kid that the store down the street chose to start selling pornography. I mean, if a grown adult wants to get paid by being naked and another grown adult wants to look at that adult being naked, what's the big deal? I didn't see the issue. My adolescent brain just couldn't get that through what everybody was so upset about. Fast forward to today. I'm now a dad of 2 daughters, and I totally understand what the big deal is. Because you see, those daughters of mine, they're my world. If you throw my wife in that equation, those 3 girls mean everything to me. And I also know the older I get, the more people I talk to, most of the people in this industry didn't choose this lifestyle. They got into the porn industry by stepping down a slippery slope that led them from one thing to another, most of them being victims of abuse who are just trying to reclaim some of that childhood that they missed, and they're doing it by making porn. And you see, every actor and actress that's in the magazine, in the movie that you're watching, in the online video, they're someone's world. They're people.
It probably sounds cliche, but it's true. They are women, and they're somebody's mom, and they're somebody's sister, and they're somebody's daughter, and that's the truth. So you're not seeing this, person is just like a Barbie. They're not real. They're not anything. They're just some object. It's actually a person that, you just have to realize that that's what you're looking at. You're not looking at, something fake. You're looking at a genuine person. And that person has issues and they have everything, it's not the facade that it's made out to be. It's not that world. I actually remember one night I was working and there was a group of guys that came in, and it was a special boys night, and so a lot of the guys that were in with them, they had either never been to a club before, or it was like their only second time ever. They just didn't normally do that. And one of the guys that I was supposed to do a dance for had never been in a club. And I remember we were waiting for the next song to start, and we were just having conversation. And this is probably the biggest no-no. You don't talk about these things in the club as a worker, but I did. And I said to him, for some reason, I looked at him and I said, so do you have kids? And he was saying that he had kids and he had a daughter. And I just looked at him and I said, what would you do if your daughter was here? He literally got up from his chair, looked at me, and said, I would never want to see that happen. I'm very sorry I'm here, and you are somebody's daughter, and you're better than this, and you will never see me here again. And he walked out the door. And so I don't know if that was a God moment using me to remind him that these are real women and with real problems, and there's a reason that they're there and they're hurting.
I had a hard time distinguishing fantasy from reality because I really thought that that's who I was. But I think for me, when I realized how big a role fantasy played was when a fan actually drove across the country and stood outside my office to have me sign his DVD collection. And I think it was devastating for him to figure out that I was like this real person. All of a sudden, like, he wanted to save me and take me home with him. Like, I was an actual girl, and I wasn't just this person in the films. And when he came home and broke from that fantasy, he killed himself. And I had no idea like how warped people get into these movies. and how devastating it was for them to realize, like, I'm a real human being with real needs and feelings. And
so why are we talking about this? How big an issue is this really? Well, let's look at a few statistics that might give you an idea of what we're talking about. Every second, over $3,000 are spent on pornography. Every second. Every second, almost 30,000 internet users are actively viewing internet porn. Every second, almost 400 internet users are actively searching for more pornography. In order to understand what this is doing, what's driving this market, we have to start by looking at the largest sex organ in your body. No, not that one, no matter what you tell your buddies. See, the largest sex organ in your body is located right between your ears. The brain is the largest sex organ in the body because every process starts with the brain. Your brain launches every bodily process that you have, so it makes sense that pornography is really a brain issue. You see, when you learn something new, anything new, your brain creates a pathway between what started and how that process ended. And your brain will send that information down that pathway each time. Each time at the end of that pathway, there's a reward called dopamine. That's the feel-good chemical that increases your learning and keeps you using that pathway that felt so good. So every time you use this pathway, you strengthen it. The problem with that is when you strengthen one pathway in your brain starts deconstructing the other pathways that are in there. That's how you learn to walk. You started creating this pathway for walking, and the crawling pathway started to be deconstructed because you weren't using it anymore. So the more time you are viewing pornography, you are short-circuiting the wiring of your brain to see an image of a woman and immediately jump through to the end of that sexual encounter. And so as you view porn, you're strengthening this pathway, and it can become so strong that it becomes the preferred pathway for any interaction you have with a member of the opposite sex, which means that girl that you see in the supermarket immediately becomes either a willing or unwilling pornography participant in your mind, because that's the preferred pathway that your brain is using for this information. Every person you meet becomes either a willing or unwilling sex object because you have, in essence, short-circuited how your brain sees the opposite sex. So because we can't open up a brain and show you these pathways, I'm standing in the middle of a pathway. This is the Rhiney B Railway. It was created in the late 1800s, and it was used as the preferred method of transportation of goods and people until 1932. And every time this pathway was used, it was strengthened, meaning it was created by man. They came in here and laid the tracks, and they cleared the brush. But over the time that it was used, none of the trees and bushes could grow into this pathway because every time they tried, a train would roll through and knock that branch out of the way. When you short circuit your brain, that becomes the preferred pathway to send information down regarding members of the opposite sex. And so what has this done to our generation, so to speak? There's a lot of research out there that says even folks in their early 20s, guys in their early 20s, are starting to get prescriptions for Viagra because a real woman doesn't do it for them anymore because of the pathway that they've created using porn. This is an issue. And so some people say, so what? They're grown adults. They make their own choices. What's the big deal? I mean, these actors and actresses that are producing these magazines and these videos, they're living the high life. They're making money. They're getting paid for have sex on film. What's the big deal? They're living the glamorous life is what I used to tell myself, because I had an image in my head of what an actor and actress's life looks like.
I think one of the common misconceptions about the porn industry is how glamorous it is. I grew up, I couldn't wait to get in that industry because I thought it was glamorous. And then the agents and the pimps, they set it out to be something that's glamorous. And so they put you up in these big houses and these fancy hotels and cars. But what you don't see is, spending 3 hours in the makeup chair to even look somewhat glamorous. What you don't see is your back going out because you're having to hold positions that are completely unnatural. What you don't see is having to take a bunch of antibiotics because of all the infections that are being spread around on set. Having to go in and out of the hospital because they're literally tearing you apart, and having to take time to heal from what the actors are doing to you to create something that is supposed to look glamorous and fun, but it's really just causing a bunch of pain and destruction. And so you're either taking drugs or medications to numb from the pain, or you're taking drugs to counteract the STDs that are being spread. That's not glamorous. For years, I told myself that I was helping people. I was helping them to have a healthy bedroom life. I was helping couples to stay together. I truly believed that. And so I wasn't really feeling guilty because I thought I was adding to the world. I had no idea the devastation that was happening from it. And I would say drinking was a big thing for me. There were times where I drank the cooking wine on set because you had your own caterers and cooks. And I didn't think that was abnormal, but I drank the cooking wine. There were times where I showed up to set with a 40 of beer in my shoebox in case they didn't have alcohol there to offer me. We filmed in other countries where I drank alcohol literally from the sink because it was like on tap in the sink. And I started interacting with pornography in elementary school, and I had no idea how much it was planting in my head until late in my adulthood, when the devastation was already too late. My advice would be to talk to somebody about it. I think the whole not talking about sex makes the desire to act out even stronger, and it increases the shame. And so I think just finding somebody healthy to talk about what sex is actually for. Sex is a great gift from God, and it has an amazing purpose. And I think where a lot of us got steered in the wrong direction is we didn't talk about sex at all. And it is something that you get to look forward to, but it's a gift to your husband, and it's a gift to your spouse. And so having somebody who has healthy sexual values to be able to explore those conversations instead of leaving it to yourself to figure out what healthy sex looks like. I grew up with insane images of sex.
Adult entertainment of any form is not at all as it's portrayed. You see on TV and the music videos, it's so pretty, everybody's having a good time. I can tell you, I always had a smile on my face. I always looked amazing. Just about everybody said, "So do you like your job?" I said, "Of course. Where else can you get paid to party?" No, I mean, you walk into the dressing room and it's dark. Girls are crying, girls are doing drugs to numb the pain, girls are falling over, hitting their heads on lockers, puking on their backpacks. I mean, it's disgusting. The abuse, I've seen a manager pick up a girl and toss her into the full-size mirror. The mirror broke. It's not pretty. I was smiling every single day, and I was also crying every other minute. It's not at all what it appears to be from the outside. Just so completely empty that the only thing that got me through my days was routine. I lost myself. It was hard to introduce myself as Tara again. My name was weird coming out of my mouth. I didn't exist anymore. I gave up. There was no hope at all. My advice to a young person involved with pornography, it's scary because I know how quickly it becomes normal, and you can view these things as things actually happen. That's not how things actually happen. When these films are being made, these girls are being hurt. Physical damage that lasts their lifetime, and most of the time they're not even getting the money. They're hurting, and I feel like these young kids expect to go out and be able to perform this certain way or look this certain way, to move this certain way, for things to happen the way they do in the movies. Real life doesn't work that way. It's not supposed to. Leaving the adult entertainment business and trying to live a normal life again has challenge. I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Little sounds, little smells will put me right back to where I was. If I'm in my walk-in closet or if I'm in the bathroom and even my 6-year-old comes to the door, still 5 years later, I have an anxiety attack because I feel like I'm trapped. There's no one that I meet that I fully trust ever 5 years later, and I hope someday I can. But when you live in a world where everybody is out to get you, literally everybody, and nothing you see is real, it changes you. You don't know what to believe anymore. You're skeptical. You're skeptical of everything. Everything. So I contracted human papillomavirus. It gave me pre-cancer on my cervix, so I had to have that removed. And for the procedure, my body clamped up. I had a panic attack. Although I wasn't acting freaked out, my body definitely was trembling, and they weren't able to do the procedure. They had to put me to sleep in order to do that. I have a hard time going to the doctor for normal checkups. I have a hard time being intimate. I'm scarred.
Hi, my name is Ked Frank, and I'm the Director of Refuge for Women. You just heard from one of our former guests that spent a year in our organization transitioning into a brighter future. We've had several guests that have been involved in the filming of pornography. Each of these women pursued a career in pornography for different reasons, but the results that they had were very similar. Lots of regret and exposure that'll be available to the public the rest of their lives. Great things have happened in their lives since that time, and they're moving on now as different people. Here's 3 things that I want you to remember from this lesson here today. These women are real people that are on the screens with real families and a real life outside of pornography. Number 2, when these women are being filmed for pornography, they're not sober because the work that they are involved in is so horrific. They're under the influence of alcohol or some illegal drug. They develop addictions and they need help getting off of these. And here's a third one. Lots of counseling is needed to help process the terrible experience they had by getting involved in this industry. I'm sure you can tell by this point how we feel about pornography. Our hope is that you choose to stay away from it. As you go to groups here soon, we hope that you'll remember some of this information that you've been able to hear.